Hello guys and welcome to another edition of Rage Against the Dice. Now this is a bit of a late night one. Mainly I can't sleep. People have been asking me to do them. So this is my painting guide on how to paint my blood letters for my Tale of Two Idiots, which kind of look like this. Any of you guys who run any of the groups we use will have seen them before. It's kind of inspired by like a Balrog. So there's lots of greys, lots of blacks, fires, things like that. I am surrounded by about 20 lamps. I don't know if that's just because it's snowing outside, so they're keeping me warm, or it's because I actually need them for painting purposes. But as you can see, I've already started on 5, and I've got another 5 here. The colours that we're going to be using for the skin, because I promised everyone that I would let them know exactly what colours, because I have a horrible habit of just kind of going, it's a black, it's a grey. So it's Games Workshop Abaddon Black, it's Games Workshop's Eshin Grey, it's Games Workshop's Dawn Stone, and you're also going to need Nuln Oil and Nuln Oil Gloss. And that's just for that bit. Obviously, as we come to each different bit, we'll talk to you about it. So what I did was first I sprayed these guys red. As you can see, or you can't see, I don't know. The camera's at a funny angle. But yeah, so I sprayed them red and then I sprayed them black on top. And that's because I do want the red to come through. But it does mean that the first thing we have to do is to mix up some black and give them like quite a heavy overbrush all over, so just tiny bits of red are coming through. Once again, because it's a kind of, I want you to be able to recreate this, we're only going to be doing kind of tabletop standard. Honestly though, I don't know, people who do paint tutorials all the time, I don't know how you do it. It's a nightmare to work around the camera and the lighting and then get into your palette. But yeah, anyway, enough ranting about those kind of things aside. I'm just going to be doing kind of an overbrush, as I said, of Abaddon Black or the old Games Workshop Chaos Black, or, you know, whichever kind of black you're going to be using. And I'm just using an old Games Workshop large dry brush, because it's still good quality. And I've mixed a bit up on my palette. And because it's something that I want you to be able to recreate at home, I haven't used a wet palette or anything like that. And all I'm doing is I'm just quite heavily going over any areas where the red's showing through a lot. I still want specks of that red to add to the sort of Balroggy fiery bit. But again, I don't want the whole thing to be red, and I don't want the whole thing to be black. And I used Army Painter Red, Dragon Red, I believe. And then for the black itself, I just used Games Workshop's black spray. But you can use whichever black spray you would usually use. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same to all of these. You guys don't need to see that part, really. It's just dry brushing. And then we'll come back once they're all done and we'll get started on the next part. Right, so I've kind of got them to this stage now where they've been dry brushed black. And as you can see, there's some very, very brief spots. Let me just move this light over it. There's some very tiny little red specks here and there, but nothing much. And that's just because we're going for that Balroggy look, so we want there to be a kind of fire thing going on. Let me just grab my palette. I've had a bit of a shuffle around desk-wise, just due to the fact that I'm left-handed, and I was trying to paint with, as you guys saw, with it on my left. Not the smartest idea. So yeah, I've switched it all around. But in terms of context, with the Tale of Two Idiots, what we want to do is we want to show how you can paint up an army at a decent pace, build the army, etc. Christmas did slow us down slightly, fully aware of that. But we're kind of back on track now, or certainly I am. I know Alan's a bit more apprehensive because he's really enjoying at the moment painting his Quadrant Overlords for Age of Sigmar. Which is another reason I want to get these done, so I can start using them in Age of Sigmar, because Age of Sigmar is getting a bit of a big push at the moment. So what I'm doing now is I'm just getting my brush and I'm adding 1 part water, 1 part Abaddon Black, and then 1 part Eshin Grey. And again, with everything, give each paint a quick shake. Should always be using like a palette or something of that ilk anyway, just so you can get the right kind of consistency and things like that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to dry brush each of these models. And again, these are really interesting models, and they don't... I use the back of my hand still. I don't know. Always have, always will. But, yeah, they're really interesting models in terms of the actual detailing and stuff on them, because they have, like, Khornate symbols on them, so I'm not being light or anything like that. It's not quite an overbrush, but it's certainly not a light dry brush. It's... You know, I'm being quite thick in places, quite thin in other places. I've painted many blood letters, these specific style of plastic ones in my time. I've had 2 previous armies, both of which were the more natural sort of red colour that you see, which is why I wanted something different for these. So all I'm doing, as I said, is I'm just kind of catching everywhere. You only really want to be as gentle as the plastic will allow. So you can see on this one, or you might not be able to, but there's more bits of red. And that's just because he was more open, so I can do a bit more with him. Again, I only want these to be tabletop standards, so I'm not going to be spending huge amounts of time on them. Eventually, I'm going to paint it a good 150 of them. I want them to all look about the same, and I want them to not take 6 months to do. You know, if I can get these done, I would say 10 of them I'd want to get done realistically in a weekend, at the kind of level that we're going to be looking for them. You know, that's the ideal. So we're just dry brushing it on. And I hate this posed one, just for the painting purposes. There's a lot of things with these. They're really nice models, but they do get a bit repetitive, especially if you're painting large quantities, which... For the most part, most people are painting large quantities. There's very few people who are just doing like an elite, small amount of blood letters. Or in my personal experience, anyway. Before my comments fill up with people who are like, I only do. That's cool. You know, that's absolutely fine. So once I've dry brushed them all, I will go over it and give them a second dry brush with the same colour again. And then the next step would be to just do Eshin on its own with my herald that I made. I did want him to be a lot better. So he's got more gradiences and more variancing, but because these are just your standard rank and file, I don't want them to take 7 or 8 coats. I want it to be, you know, colour, dry brush, bit of a wash, etc. So I like to do this dry brush and then the straight Eshin Grey dry brush before I add the washes on, and then I'll give it another Eshin Grey over the top, and that's just because of the kind of shiny look I want on the skin. You can see there, this is one I've kind of got a bit further on, and there's a bit of a shine, and you can see with this one, the shine has come off somewhat, but not fully, and that's kind of the look that I want to go for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give these guys a second coat, and then when I come back, what we can do with them is we can do the next step, which is the Eshin Grey itself, and then after that we'll move on to putting on the washes and things like that. So I'm going to go do the second coat without you guys, because I don't feel that you need me to show you how to do that exact same step that I've just done. I believe in you. So I'm going to be back in a minute once that's all done, and then we'll go on to just the Eshin Grey itself. So here you have it. I've started doing the Eshin Grey now, and I'm being lighter with the Eshin Grey. Still trying to pick out those raised areas, still trying to pick out like the muscles and things like that. Get inside there where all the texture and things like that are, and I just want to sort of pick out those areas. I'm just giving it a dry brush. Just catching everywhere. And what I'll do for these kind of things is I tend to go one way, like I'm all just going up, and then maybe I'll just all go to the side. And it's all just very, very basic dry brushing technique. Stuff you guys will have most likely done a million times before yourselves. If you are new to it, or sort of new to the hobby, and this may be the first painting tutorial you've watched, this is less of a step-by-step guide and more just a, these are the colours I used, let's kind of have a chat along while I do it. We do intend to do some proper painting tutorial type things, where I go step-by-step, explain what dry brushing and stuff like that are. But this was more just because people asked me kind of the colours that I used to get kind of the look of them. A few of my Lord of the Rings friends, because they wanted to do their Balrogs similar, and then mainly just, you know, guys on the channels we use, like Idic Beers, YouTube, Underdog Painting, Blackjack Legacy, those kind of ones, as well as the AOS and 40k ones specifically. And once you kind of got this, and I only do one coat with this one, but once you've done that, you want to do the washes. Now, the order of the washes is quite simple. You do a single coat of Nuln Oil, and then a single coat of Nuln Oil gloss. So you have to wait for one to dry before you do the other. So instead of doing 2 coats of wash like you predominantly would, the second coat is the gloss. So I'm just going to keep my brush very quickly now, and then we'll get straight on with that, because by the time that one's done, this guy is now probably dry. I did slightly cheat, and I gave them their first dry brush off camera, just to speed things along a little for yourselves. And for this I'm using a Wargaming Monster Regiment-y brush. Just getting my Nuln Oil. Tiny bit of water on my palette. Nuln Oil. Always close your lid. or at least close it somewhat. And we're just slopping this everywhere, if we're honest. You know, this is just your basic how to wash a model. You're trying not to let any areas pool. If any areas do pool, that's absolutely fine. All you need to do is get your brush afterwards, and we can scoop up those areas. I'll demonstrate that. So if I got too much on the face, for instance, like that, all you need to do is just get your brush and just pick out some of those areas, and let the brush soak it up. So what I'm going to do is just do all the dry brushing on the, do all the wash on these for the first coat, because you guys, once you've seen one wash get done, it's pretty much the same as all. So I'm going to wash these 4, so they'll be up to the same standard as this guy, and then we'll move on to the non-oil side of things. So back in a minute. So that's drying now. The only thing I would say is if you've left some bits where the red undercoat, because you've done it red and then you've done it black over the top, if there's some bits where the red undercoat shows through, try and get the wash a bit thicker on those areas, or you may need to go back and give it a second coat of the known oil before you do the gloss. It's because you want the red to be under there, but you kind of want it to be under the surface, like it's cracking away, like the Balrog skin is. What you don't want is big patches of red. One thing I'll do while waiting for that to dry is I'll just let you know how we're doing the bases, because on mine, as you can see, I've gone for a very Slaneshi colour, and that's because I play a lot of friends who have Slanesh armies. And with that, I've done it Screamer Pink. And then after the Screamer Pink, the colours you want are, let me just find them, you're basically working through the pinks. So it's Pink Horror, and then Emperor's Children. So it goes... It's this, and then I finished it off with one of the dry brush paints. It's the pink one, which is right here, which is Changeling Pink. I don't tend to use the dry brush paints a lot, which apparently I should be, because they're very, very good. So that's, I guess, my loss, no one else's. But what I did was, once I'd done the Screamer Pink, I gave the base a wash of Flesh Wash, and then they get a wash of Brown Wash. Now, with the bases, you'll notice they don't look very textured-y, but if you actually look up close, it's because I've used that paint that crackles. Now, with this, obviously, it's a bigger base. There's a lot more on. With the smaller ones, it's just smaller crackling. And that's highly intentional. And I wanted the texturing of the base, so you can see it's actually coming through a little bit. My apologies. I've got that plague that everyone's got. The reason that I did that, though, not the plague thing, the reason that I've done the bases this way is I cover them in the crackling paint, which I just use Games Workshop's. Is it this one? Yes, it's called Martian Iron Earth. I coat it in that before I undercoat it, and the reason being, it just helps it seal. So while we wait for that wash to dry, all I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some Screamer Pink. Now, with your bases, it will take 2 coats. Screamer Pink's not an amazing colour for going over things like blacks and stuff like that. So here you go, mix it up. My water itself's getting a bit dirty, actually, and I do tend to have 2, as you probably recall from previous videos and things like that. Let me swing that down just so it's, as I said, I really struggle, and it's just a case of that I'm not used to it. The painting whilst on camera, you know, I try and look at the camera instead of my model and things like that. So it's something I'm going to have to work on. I mean, if I had an actual producer as opposed to just Alan shouting at me in German Like, he doesn't even speak German to my knowledge. I think he just knows the swear words. But yeah, I think that would probably work a lot better, but that's not what we're about on YouTube, or some of us aren't anyway. You know, as I always say, no expense spent. You know, we have limited production. We just have very basic equipment, but what we do have is a massive love for this hobby and a really big desire to connect with other hobbyists. So yeah, so all I'm doing is I'm just coating the whole base, and again, as I said, it's going to need a second coat, but I'm not so bothered about the thickness and things like that. So it can be a little patchier in places, and that's perfectly fine, because remember, we're not working with any texture or anything here. So the bases themselves, we get a lot of that, a lot of the texture work and stuff from the paint. So that's when we do the base. We do dry brush it, which I know you can think, well, there's not really anything there to dry brush, but it's the type of dry brushing we do. We kind of do little circular motions, kind of splay out the brush, and add a kind of our own little definition. I'm probably not explaining it very good or very well. So I'll most definitely show you guys when we get up to that stage. The reason I'm doing the bases now is purely just to A, get them up to the same standard as the other 5, and B, just to give me something to do while the black dries, because I'm ridiculously impatient. Should maybe get a hobby that doesn't involve patience, whatever that may be. Yeah, so I'm just going along and just doing all these bases. Again, once the pink and stuff like that goes on, you can see the crackle a bit better in some of them. As you can see, it is very patchy and it is sort of drying, and you can see the black coming through. So they definitely do need a second coat. Try and be as neat as possible with it, but you do have some work still to go on the skin and things like that, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I always find it's best if you're careful in the early going, less to clean up later on. So there you can see, as this one's starting to dry, you can see things like the black coming through. So I'm just going to add some patches. As I said, we want this, we're kind of going to add some texture and stuff like that just via the paint itself. So we don't want it to be like beautifully even, as if we were painting, you know, other things. So it's okay if we've got different textures and different lights and things like that coming through. So right, we've kind of got those to that stage now. The next thing we're going to do, before we leave it for tonight, I am going to put this whole video up at once, but I am filming it in stages, so I'm going to get the non-oil gloss done to get them up to this stage, and then what I'll do in the morning is I'll dry brush them all together with the Eshin Grey, and then we'll start to pick out the fire and things like that, and then I'll show you the final highlight of it will be the Dawn Stone, but I do that after I've done the fire. So as you can hear, my little ball inside my non-oil gloss, I'm going to completely be sacrilege here, and I'm going to use the Null Oil gloss straight from the pot. It's not something I do a lot, but with Null Oil gloss, I find that I can work better with it straight out the pot. And that's my own personal preference. This isn't some kind of like secret modelling tip. This is just something I've noticed. You know, if anybody else has noticed any different, you know, feel free to leave that in the comments. Because I don't... That's the thing, guys. Like, when I paint something, I paint it the way I paint it. You know, I have worked for painting companies before, and I have worked for... You know, I was a Games Workshop employee before. But I always used to say the same thing, which is that I would teach you to paint the way I paint. You know, it's not a hard and fast rule of this is how you should paint a miniature. It's just this is how I do paint a miniature. And they're seemingly at times very, very different things. But yeah, Null Oil gloss is probably the only one I would suggest. Or any of the glosses, I guess. But yeah, it's still a bit sacrilege. And I still feel a bit dirty doing it, especially in a video context. But yeah, when it comes to Null Oil gloss, that tends to be what I do. Again, I'm trying to make sure I get all the bits that are red. And we're not going to leave those red. Any bits that are red and the red showing through, we're going to highlight them when we're doing the fire and stuff. So don't think like it's just a cheap out. Ow! Just karate chopped the camera. But yeah, so I'm just glossing them all over. Again, I don't want to put too much. If you do happen to put too much, that's absolutely fine. You can get it off the same way you could in the wash stage, by using like a dry brush. Not as in a dry brush, but as in a brush that is not wet. Bereft of moisture, if you will. I've been pondering doing a live stream. I know I've mentioned it a couple of times. I actually was going to do one this weekend with regards to these, or during the week. But with everything with the snow and everything, I don't know. I just ended up not feeling like it, I guess. You start to go a bit stir crazy because we've been almost trapped inside, bar a bit of playing out in the snow and things. So yeah, still always remembering, even if you're using out the pot, remember to close the lid. You don't want to be one of those guys on one of the Facebook groups, or girls, who've, you know, the whole, oh no, I've spilt my Null Oil, or my Agrax Earthshade, here's a photo of it. You know, you don't want to be that guy and or girl, or undecided. So just keep your lids closed, or better yet, always work from a palette. I know I've just told you that I'm going to use this straight out of the pot, but it's more because it's now getting on for like 5:30 in the morning, and I need like an hour's sleep here or there before the boys wake up, and then the torture begins. Anybody who's a parent will completely understand what I'm talking about with that, the torture thing. They look so sweet, but kids are evil. Fact. So yeah, we're kind of getting these all to the same standard. So what I'm going to do now, because I am going to give these their glosses, I'm going to leave it at that. And when we come back next, we'll do the dry brushing and things like that. But we'll leave that for the morning, because as I said, it's getting late. So I'll check in with you guys in a bit. So welcome back, guys. It's a new day, but the same project. Now, because I am filming during the day, Parker is around. Say hello, Parker. Hello. There's Parker if you heard him. And Harley's also around too, but that's mainly just playing on his tablet and wishing that all adults were dead. So you probably won't hear much of him. When we left it off last night, or 2 nights, whenever we last left it off, we'd got to a point where we'd done... 1 second, I've got to put Godzilla's arms back on. Here you go, there's Godzilla. And there's his one arm that he can find. So, yeah. Where we'd got up to last is we had added the Null Oil Gloss Wash to the model. I'm trying a new camera angle at the moment. I'm actually using my Flexi tripod, which means it can wrap around things, so I've actually got it wrapped around one of the lights, and that seems to be working quite well. Well, I say quite well. Let's get some. So that's the model in question. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and bring some of that shine down so it looks more like that. I am going to put a load of photos and stuff at the end of the video just so you guys can see it. Because I accept we're still messing around trying to get this right. So again, Ashen Grey. I'm thinking of maybe at the start of these videos, and I'll do it on this one and you guys can let me know in the comments if you like it. But putting like a list of the colours that we used straight away. So if like me, you like to set up all your paints straight away and get started straight away, you'll be able to have a list of all of them. So it'll tell you what you need for the fire, what you need for the skin and the golds and things like that you use. But as I said, I'll try it on this and we'll see how it goes, and if people like it, maybe we'll continue on doing it. I think what I'm going to do, because I use desk lamps at the moment with some daylight bulbs and stuff in, I think what I might do is I might try and get some wireless halogen lights, because then I'm not as constrained by wires and things like that. But again, it's all speculation. So what we're doing is I've mixed up some Ashen Grey. I've gone 1 part Ashen Grey to 2 parts water. And I'm being a lot lighter this time with the dry brush. And I'm just, more than anything, I'm just trying to take that shine off, because you can see it's got a bit of a shine on it. And with this, I know with the Null Oil Gloss, naughty, we used it without a palette. But we're back to normal now, and we're back to mixing and being good, well-rounded human beings who don't waste paint or put it on too thickly. So there you go. So that's the first one. Let's see if I can see that around. Again, the problem I'm having is working within the confines of the camera. And I guess a lot of you have similar issues. I've noticed on a couple of other videos, obviously the more professional ones, not like me, but the more professional ones have got that down. And I have been dropping some emails to some of my favourite painters just saying what kind of setups they use, etc. I'm just looking for some basic tips. So hopefully they'll get back to me with some really, really good advice, because that's the one thing about this community. We seem really, really good at helping each other out. So what I'm going to do, because no doubt my kids are going to want to come in and talk about Godzilla and things like that. I'm just going to dry brush the rest of these. I've done 2. I'm going to dry brush the other 8. And then I'm going to give them a second coat. Now, it's really important that you do this. They do need 2 coats. And then we'll see where we're at. And we'll see whether we need to use the Dawn Stone at all at this stage, or whether we can carry on and start doing the rest. So, back in a minute, guys. So now, we've got them to this stage. And again, the light's really not doing what I want it to do. God bless it. we've got it to a stage that I'm happy enough with in terms of that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the fire. And for the flames, when I did the main character, I did a lot of steps. We're going to try and simplify that at least somewhat. Right there, that seems okay-ish, doesn't it? Yeah. So you basically need the reds. So we're going to go Mephiston. And we're going to go Evil Sons. And then when I can find it, because we don't prepare here, no. We go Wild Rider Red. Then you need Troll Slayer. Then we go to Real Yellow. Or Aerial Yellow. I never know with that one. Then we go Flash Gets Yellow. And then we finish it with Screaming Skull. Now, when I did my main character, because that wasn't done speed painting style like these are, it was done in a much more 400 steps kind of way. The fire actually takes up a lot more steps. But we can get a very similar, if not identical, look with dry brushing. And that's what we're going to do. Because remember the whole thing about the Tale of Two Idiots. It isn't about showing off how great we can paint. Or how, how okay I can paint, etc. We are going to use a number of washes as well with this. And we'll talk through those at each stage. And there's Parker. But yeah, so it was never really about, how good can we paint? It's about getting a tabletop army on the table quickly, but where it looks decent. It doesn't have to look amazing, it just has to look decent. And that's kind of what we're going for here. So the washes in question are Carroburg Crimson, which is a red wash. Cassandora Yellow. Again, these are all Games Workshop shades. Agraxa shade and Reichland Flesh shade. I'm kind of experimenting and trying something new. I'm also going to be getting out my Bloodletter Glaze. And my Lamenter's Yellow Glaze. So this isn't an exact science. Because I'm trying to perfect a quicker way. So, one thing I would suggest is, if you wanted to cut out some steps, you could go from Mephiston to Troll Slayer to Flash Gits, and that should be good enough. But as I said, these are, I still want them to tie in with my other ones. So as you can see with this guy, we did the tongue, we did the flamings on the back, and we did the sword itself. So we're going to be doing the same here. So we're going to need red, as that's your base. And we're going to need a lot of red. I'm going to have to do my video soon, where I show you guys how to make your own wet palette. Because the reason we don't use it in the videos is because we haven't showed you how to make one. So it's kind of a everyday, anybody can paint using a tile, etc, etc. If I show you guys how to make a wet palette, then I can start using my wet palette for these videos. And then words. No! And then my paint will last longer. So, with this, I'll spin it back around to here. So, I wouldn't usually use this brush for this. It's just it already has some paint on it from mixing it up. So, I might as well get some use out of it. So, and with this bit, only this bit though, the fin, It doesn't matter if you get it on the skin, because as you see, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan or you've seen any of the Balrog models, it does have some red on the back and things like that where it has it crackling, and that's one of the reasons. So like here where it's ran down, which is why I've got it extra watery, because that's kind of the effect I want it to go for. Yeah, so even Parker agrees. So I'm just doing the blade, and as I said, it's just to get rid of the excess off this brush, so I can wash it and then I can start working with a slightly smaller brush. You know, waste not, want not, as it were. The tongue I would not advise trying to do with this bigger brush. So the areas you're picking out, as I said, the tongue, the fin, and the blade on the sword. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to speed paint through all these. See, even Parker likes that idea. Just so you guys can see what I'm doing. It's just a basic base coat, so it's nothing too exciting. But I'm going to get that sped up, and then we'll come back with it once it's all done, and we'll show you the next steps. With this, you will need 2 coats, especially if you've watered it down as much as I have. And because you want it to slightly run into the back and stuff, you do want it watered down. So right, we've kind of got to this stage now, and this is just from one coat, so I am going to go over and I'm going to do things like the blades and the fire. I'm going to give those a second coat. I'm not going to film that because it would just be the same as the first one. So if you are really that excited about watching it get a second coat, what you could do is just skip back a bit on the video and then rewatch it. Obviously, I don't actually suggest you do that. I'm just being a facetious dick, as is my thing. So yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to give these all a second coat now, and I'm going to get them sort of really popping. And I'm going to take it from there. So yeah, guys, for me, it's going to be about 5 minutes. For you, it's probably going to be somewhat instantaneous. But yeah.